The second point I want to highlight in this recommended article by Britton is the extreme possibilities of the interaction between container and contained. As we said, when there's an adequate match, there are possibilities for development. Things can take on meaning. But when there isn't a good match, things start to fall apart. The two extreme possibilities that Britton highlights can be called container suffocates contained and contained explodes container or shuttered container. I gave the second possibility two names, but actually the two names represent the same explosion scenario, just from two different perspectives. Let's look at the first possibility, container suffocates contained. This is a possibility of something that can happen internally between two people or in a group or institution. In this possibility, the container does not allow the contained, the meanings, to begin to take shape. There's an institutional group or internal oppression that does not allow new meanings to open up. If we take this as a group example, it is possible to imagine that there's a group and someone presents a new idea. And the group says, no, leave it, nonsense, etc., etc. The group sticks to the status quo, stays loyal to the institution, and does not allow the new idea to exist, suffocating it. It does not allow it to exist and sends it back to the womb into a sterilized pre-existent form. That can also happen internally, in the mind of the individual who internalizes the institutional thinking and stays devoted to the status quo. On the contrary, it is possible to think of the second possibility. The content makes the container explode, and in this possibility, someone proposes an idea so catastrophic, so innovative and provocative that it makes the container explode. It makes the group explode. It makes the possibility of thinking explode. It explodes the encounter as if someone walked into a group meeting, said something, and blew up the meeting. They all scatter. This is also a possibility. It is important to understand that Bion spoke in a way that was multidimensional. He spoke simultaneously of several different dimensions, and when he implanted a model as the container contained, it is necessary to think of it through several simultaneous possibilities. His models are like abstract aiding tools that assist thinking about clinical scenarios. One of the issues that concerned Bion was the institutionalization of the mind. Can we truly think of new ideas, or is our consciousness so identified with existing ideas, institutional ideas, that a new idea cannot arise? If a new idea, or as Bion called it, a messianic idea, cannot in fact exist in our consciousness, then we have no chance of bringing anything new or creative to the table. We stay in the realm of transformations in K. Let's imagine the group we mentioned before. Someone suddenly says something and the group responds, leave it, nonsense. If we take it to the internal dimension, a new part of us tells us, wait a minute, maybe it is possible to do things differently. And the other internal parts say, leave it, nonsense. It turns the new development down, and in Bion's language, the institution exterminates the Messiah in order to reduce the risk of a catastrophic change, of a transformation in O. The container suffocated the contained. In this specific chapter, the two possibilities, container suffocates contained and the other, contained explodes container, are represented in the description of a patient who got stuck on the threshold of a shelter. Here is a patient who, in the midst of the explosions in England, is stuck in a shelter with her mother. Her mother is very fearful and dependent. She suffocates her and sticks to her. And the patient can no longer breathe. She gets to the entrance of the shelter, sees the explosions outside, and gets stuck in the entrance at the edge of the exit, and she collapses into a state of numbness. She's in a horrible state of mind where she's awake but doesn't feel a thing. This demonstrates the two possibilities. On the one hand, if she stays in the shelter, she will remain suffocated by her anxious mother and will die there. On the other hand, if she goes outside to the explosions, She will die in another way, in an explosion. She can't resolve this dilemma, so she collapses on the threshold, agitated. This specific dilemma has an existential quality to it. It is also related to what is described in the literature as the agoraphobic, claustrophobic dilemma. Claustrophobia is a fear related to being imprisoned in an enclosed place, a situation in which the container suffocates the contained, dying in one way. In agoraphobia, a fear of public places can be related to a fear of being outside and getting lost inside a fragmented container in which you can explode. It is another possibility of death. This dilemma accompanies us all the time in life in one way or another. If we think about the edge of our birth, the edge of leaving the womb, there's a possibility of re-entering the womb again to safety, but this also implies a certain level of depression. Everything is known and development is delayed. On the other hand, there's also a chance to move forward to life. But this possibility of moving into the unknown always implies a certain level of fear, of anxiety. So all the time we're in a conflict, not just at the moment of birth. At every existential moment, we are in a place between depression and anxiety, between security and status quo, and institutionality and the known. This implies a certain level that can be depressive. And facing a certain going out to the unknown, coming to light, always implies a certain level of anxiety. So we are constantly between these two options. This conflict is very much alive in people who suffer from what we call borderline organization. When they are next to someone, they feel suffocated as if they were swallowed. Contrarily, when they are alone, they start to feel an unbearable feeling of loneliness running through them, and they feel this to the point of fragmentation, which is unbearable. There are people in this specific context who talk about how they can't stand to be inside a city, they feel suffocated, but contrary to that, when they are in nature, they sometimes feel lost, disorganized, and fearful. It is like saying that a child, in parallel, needs a framework, but not a framework that suffocates him. Without a framework, he can become wild, chaotic, and fragmented. With a frame, he can become oppressed and suffocated. So we always look for a creative interaction between two components.